Hey folks, in today's video we're going to go over the latest Tinto Talks for Project Caesar aka EU5, and in this one Johan's going to talk to us about how conquest works and how integrating new locations you have conquered will work. Also covers how some other integration works, but that is going to be the primary focus, and as part of that we're going to be covering Casus Belli, war goals, and then as he mentions integration as well on its own. Johan does point out here, if you want to know how actual military campaigns work, if this is maybe your first video you've seen on EU5, you can see that in Tinto Talks 22, 23, and 24. I have covered those on the channel if you want to go back. I always link the previous dev diaries in the description down below if you want to go back and catch up. But at the beginning here, Johan's going to start with Casus Belli. So to start a war, many feel that you need a Casus Belli for it. They're going to refer to these as CBs. I mean, if you played any Paradox game, you probably refer to them as CBs, and that is how they're going to be covered in the rest of this dev diary. But if you are new to Paradox games, that is what CB means. If you lack a CB and start a war, you will gain some aggressive expansion and lose some stability. We all know aggressive expansion is just a number, but I believe in this game, maybe it's going to be much worse. While this may not be something that you always want, it is a more lenient way to recover instead of spending precious paper mana like in EU4. However, there are many ways to get a CB in this game, and of course we don't have paper mana in EU5. That has gone away. So how this is going to work in EU5 is going to be different to how you've seen it in previous Paradox games. Now in the next part, Johan says, now Project Caesar does not have a fabricate claim button that magically creates a CB on any nation, nor do they have a system of claims, but there are several options to get a CB. Now I will say, in the next part, he basically does describe a fabricate claim button. So I kind of get what he's saying here, because you don't have the mana system to just click fabricate a claim on this place. It does work a little bit different. There's more steps to do it in EU5, as we'll get to. But I would say that saying there's no way to fabricate claims with a magic button isn't technically true, I don't think, for EU5. As I say, you'll see once we get through this. So first of all, there is the super old school way of getting one from an event. This may not cater to everyone's playing style, as it is a little bit random. So, you know, you can have an event that pops up saying, historically, England got this claim on Wales. Click this button and you will also get a claim on Wales. Things like that we see in EU4 and in many other Paradox games. Secondly, you have the option of calling a parliament and asking them to come up with a valid reason to go to war against a nearby country. This is powerful, but unless you have high crown power, you may need to negotiate with your estates for their backing, and parliaments cannot be called every month either. Democracy has not yet been invented. As you can see from that paragraph, kinda sounds like the fabricate claim button to me. Like, I know you have to go to the parliament and then ask them, and then they'll give you a claim or not. Is that different to fabricate claim in Crusader Kings or something like that? I don't think it's that different to having a fabricate claim button that you just click once you've got enough of a bar filled up. Finally, there is a way to create Casus Belli. First of all, creating a Casus Belli on a country requires you to have a spy network in the target country, similar to how it works in EU4, but you also need to have some reason to create the Casus Belli that you want. If you, let's say, play as Denmark and want to take back Skane from Sweden, as you have cores on it, then you can create a conquer core Casus Belli on them. Or if they've used privateers in a sea zone where you have maritime presence, which was covered in last week's dev diary, you also can create a Casus Belli on them. Again, I don't think this is crazy different to how it works in other Paradox games, but it is a little bit, I guess, of a change, as there is no mana really to make things. So I don't know. It's not crazy different in my head. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. There are currently over 50 different Casus Belli that you can create depending on circumstances, including everything from flower wars, dissolving the Tatar yoke for the tributaries under international organization, or even humiliating your rivals. So I don't think, again, a crazy departure from how it works in other ones. Not how it would seem like at the beginning of the dev diary, but I do see how it's a little bit of a change, and I think coupled with all the military changes and things like that, we are going to see less just total war happening. And then in our next screenshot, we see the first crusade against Lithuania. This is a war versus the Kingdom of Bohemia and the Kingdom of Poland. You can see the war score of -6.5 basically, and these are modified by different things that you can see. And he's going to cover this in the next section. So the next part is about war goals. Whether you decide that a small border adjustment is needed or you wish to wage a total war, different CBs will allow you to pick different war goals, and the war goal you pick impacts the cost of conquest as well. A conquer CB will make land cheaper, whilst a humiliation CB will make them more expensive. A war goal for a province requires you to occupy the entire province, whereas a naval superiority war goal will give you a bonus score for blockading the enemy and defeating their navy if possible. I like the sound of that naval superiority war. You know, as an Englishman, obviously I would, but it does sound like that could be a cool kind of war goal to take control of the seas, I guess. And I wonder if it like weakens their trade power or something in the areas. I would presume it does lower their maritime presence for sure, but we will see. If the war goal is fulfilled, then the war score will tick up to a maximum of 25. The total impact from battles in this game is worth up to 50, whilst occupations and blockades have no cap and can reach 100 war score if possible. In Project Caesar, therefore, not every war is necessarily a total war like previous games that they have made. They've mentioned this all the way through the dev diary since the very first one. They really want you to get away from just having total wars happening all the time. I'm going to go to war for this duchy, basically, but then to get this, I've got to siege down the entirety of France, defeat their armies everywhere. Oh, I've won. Okay, I get this little duchy onto my lands. Now they're trying to get away from that and have it so wars are a little bit more focused, and you're not going to just have these, you know, year-long wars all the time, due to how these war goals work, and then also the war score, and then also on top of that, how the armies and things like that work. As we've seen, it's built into the economy a lot more, your population, so you're not really wanting to do these total wars unless you have a superior advantage, you know, if you are playing your little Napoleon gameplay, or maybe if you're under attack by somebody, you are going to probably last as long as you can, or maybe you will want to give up so your economy doesn't get destroyed, things like that. So it looks like warfare, as they've even pointed out here, is going to be more about trying to get your goal and then get out of the war, rather than like, oh, I'm just going to siege down everything and then take some additional stuff as well. And then he does continue here to say, if the war goal is not fulfilled, it is only possible to get 100% war score if the winning side controls all the losing side's locations and the losing side controls no towns or cities. So I guess that is kind of the backup to this. If you do siege down everything EU4 style, then you will win the war no matter what. That does make sense. I guess that also covers if they declare like naval wars against you, you can kind of, go to war on land and win that way if you don't have a navy or something like that. Do have this kind of backup way to do it. This means that if you have a war goal taken care of, winning some important battles and occupying some land, you are able to force a reasonable peace on someone. So really backing up what we were saying, you don't have to go total war all the time. If you win some battles, occupy some land, you'll probably be able to get at least some of what you're after, maybe all of it, depending on how well you're doing or how badly they are doing. And you can see here a war goal, independence for Calpe, impact of current war goal, the target is Calpe, so that is obviously where you need to siege it down. Conquer cost for attacker, aggressive expansion, and if you've played EU4, this isn't crazy different to what you've seen there. It's just kind of laid out a little bit different. Next, we're going to cover what happens once you have conquered somewhere, so that is integration. First of all, in EU5, it is not as simple as a location being a core or not, as EU5 introduces a new system of integration for locations. There are 4 states of integration in the game. First of all, there are conquered locations, which have high separatism. They're going to cover what that means in a second. Low control and make pops unlikely to convert or assimilate. This is a state for any location you conquer that is not a core of your own. When a location becomes integrated, separatism drops to 1/5 of the previous levels and control has a higher maximum, so it allows you to kind of get more out of that location after you have it integrated into your lands. When a location becomes a core, the minimum control is higher and your primary and accepted cultures grow more, while minorities in that area become stagnant. This is one I'm not too sure about. I get that you like core somewhere and it is seen as part of your realm, but I don't see why minorities just become stagnant. I guess it's so they don't become like more powerful than your accepted. So if you go over 50% of your culture, it becomes an accepted location. And then I guess this is to prevent the minorities kind of taking back over, I guess, just through like game mechanics. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense, at least to me, that the minorities would just be like, okay, I guess we won't have any more children. You're now in charge of this area. Your culture's the best. Like, logically, does it make sense? I think game-wise, it's probably for those reasons, just so they can't accidentally become more powerful again and kind of like not give you the cultural advantage in that area. So I imagine that's why. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. But it does seem a little bit weird, but I kind of see, I guess, why it works that way. We also have the colonized status, which is after you colonize a location. That does make sense, and it is not yet a core. A colonized location has lower maximum control. So really, that's a lot of like word salad there. But to go over like the TLDR, I guess, conquered is the default stage when you take land via war. That one is obvious. Integrated is when you use your cabinet to integrate a conquered land into your nation. They're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. Colonized is when you colonize somewhere through the colonization mechanics, which they have covered in a previous dev diary. And then core is when at least 50% of the population in an integrated or colonized land are of your primary or accepted cultures, which, as we've seen in previous dev diaries, I think is a passive process that will happen naturally unless you use the cabinet member to assimilate populations in those integrated provinces. That was again covered in an earlier dev diary. So they're kind of like the 4 kind of stages of integration that you can have. And I don't know, I think that makes sense. It's a little bit different to EU4, but it is cool kind of like how you have these steps. It's not just you've got somewhere, oh, you can force a core on it by using some mana, and then it's kind of seen as your land no matter what, really. I mean, obviously other people can have claims on it still, but it's like a core part of your land. This way, it looks like it's going to be a little bit more fluid, and you're not just going to be going around coring everything that kind of makes sense to you. So again, as I've said all the way through this dev diary, we'll see once we get our hands on it. And then, as I said earlier, what is separatism? Well, this is the reduction of satisfaction for populations that are not of your primary culture. This is very likely to make the locations very unproductive for quite some time. So again, reinforcing this thing of you take land and then it isn't actually going to be super useful for you for a long time. So again, this is going to slow down, I think, blobbing out. I think you are going to be able to do that still, but this is really going to make it so you have to think about how quick you're expanding, because those new lands aren't going to be that useful to your realm for quite a long time. So you need to have the mechanics, the population, the industry in a way in your homelands to really kind of sustain these newly conquered lands until they become useful. A lot more so than you see in Crusader Kings or EU4 or Imperator Rome or something. You are going to have to think about it a lot more. And I think, again, that makes it so you're not going to be blobbing as much, or even thinking I'm going to look for lands that are of my culture, things like that, more than you do currently. At least that's what I think. You just continue here to say a location becomes a core automatically if it is integrated or colonial, and at least 50% of the pops are of the primary or accepted cultures of that country, as I kind of mentioned in that TLDR of what integration means. So again, it will automatically core if the amount of people there see themselves as, say, Swedish, and you're playing Sweden. It will then core to your realm, and then you can carry on as normal. And as you can see here, the core of Scania, this is the integration of it. Max control plus 20%, monthly control 0.10, only primary and accepted growth, yes. Owner gets vision when occupied, yes. So again, that is showing that it locks off minority cultures once you have it integrated to this level. And the current cores of this are the Kingdom of Denmark and the Kingdom of Scania. They both have cores in this area. So there we go. That is how that is going to work, and that is the tooltip for it. So once you've conquered these areas and then want to think about getting that integration going, so how do you actually do that? Well, as we've mentioned before, in Project Caesar, aka EU5, we don't have magic paper mana to spend on it. Instead, you have to use one of your members of cabinet to integrate it. At the start of the game, a cabinet member can integrate an entire province at once, but in the Age of Absolutism, you can advance that to integrate an entire area at once instead. So if I remember correctly, province is like a county, a area is like a duchy. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe that's what it is. So once you have the Age of Absolutism, you pick the advance in there, you can integrate places a lot quicker than you can previously. This integration is not instant, but it depends on many factors like the status and the population living in the locations. But on average, integrating a province will take between 25 and 50 years. So again, showing if you do these crazy blobbing wars, you're not going to be able to integrate these places for a long time. This is 25 to 50 per province, later on per area, so it is quicker once you get to those real nation building eras. But early on especially, it's going to be very hard to integrate these places. And you can see here, integrating, this is the cabinet action that somebody in your cabinet can do. This will be completed on the 1st of November. It is increasing by 0.5 each month, and then the reasons why that is happening. Johan doesn't go into the information about this. He just says, what are all these factors? So I guess in the future, we are going to get a dev diary really kind of going through all of these. I think we know what some of them are, power projection we've seen before. And with that, that is the end of the dev diary for today. As always, do hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new here. I'm covering EU5 up to official announcement, launch, and beyond. And I cover a lot of Crusader Kings. Roads to Glory just came out. Unlanded gameplay, it's crazy. But with that, Johan does say next week we're going to be talking about peace treaties and how they work. That's going to be interesting. I do wonder if they're going to work very differently to how they do in EU4. I think a lot of people hate how rigid they are in EU4. So I wonder if we're going to get something that's a little bit more fluid. Maybe you can pick up different war goals depending on how your war's going. Something like that. Anyway, we'll see you next week. But with that, we will leave it there for today, and I'll see you in the next one.